Live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of God's Folk and Destiny. A little bit of an exciting start off in a bad sort of way there. The computer that I was on and had planned on using and had just about where I wanted it just died. It just quit doing what it was supposed to do. So we had to get rid of that, drag another one up from downstairs, get it onto the network because it wasn't. And so anyway, it has not been the best fun I've had today or any time recently for that matter. But we're here, we're operating. My apologies because, everybody's got apologies and everybody's got excuses. I will do my best, and it's just bad on me. I should have had a backup ready to rock. When the chopper leaves, the chopper leaves. So welcome. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here with us. Thanks to Big Dave Martell for pulling my ashes out of the fire as usual, and also to our guest who's standing by, and we'll be talking with him in just a minute. So, God's folk and destiny. Let's pause it right there for just a moment. God's folk and destiny. What do those three words mean? And why are they like that? Why didn't I say folk, destiny, and gods are, and folk and gods are other variation? Why did I come up with this idea of God's folk and destiny for the name of this program that you're watching? Well, here's the logic behind it. The idea is this: through the might and the wisdom of our gods, our folk, that slice of the human race that is our people, shall attain their destiny. It's a logical sequence. Now, what's that destiny going to look like? Beats me, I'll tell you when we get there. But words that come to mind are things like adventure, drama, courage, outreach, overcoming, becoming, success, well-being, the permanence of our people. All of these are the things that come to mind when I think of our destiny. We'll talk about all of that more in the episodes to come, but just keep that in mind. We live at a wonderful time. We are at a time of maximum challenge right now, and that is the conditions in which a folk searches out and finds their destiny. We will attain that destiny, and it's going to be a very interesting ride. Thank you for being here for it. So, this is the point where I plug my book, as Big Dave Martell has been teaching me on. He's kind of schooling me a little bit on this kind of stuff because I don't know much about this sort of thing. But I do know something about this book, Asatru, A Native European Spirituality. This obviously is my book. I highly recommend it, not just because I wrote it, but because it is, if I do say so myself, an excellent introduction to the subject. I don't make it out to be rocket science. It's not ooh-wow, peculiar and weird. It's just a very straightforward, bit-by-bit introduction to and elaboration on this holy faith that we follow. Now, you can go and buy this on Amazon if you really want to. Or you can buy it from us. And for $25, we'll send this anywhere in the United States, media mail, and I will gladly put in, a signature, a personalized signature, not just a scrawl, not just which nobody can read. You'll get a comment from me. Probably it would be a little better than the comments I would be giving right now because of our upsets recently. But on it goes. This is an important book, and I encourage you, if you haven't already read it, please do. So, all of that out of the way, things rocking along here. Got a special guest for you tonight, Matt Flavel. And Matt has been overseas. He's been in Sweden and I believe in Norway, visiting Asatru over there. He had a number of other AFA leadership with him. And my understanding is, and from looking at all the pictures that have come back on Facebook, when I can find a way to access that platform to which I'm no longer welcome, they had a good time. So I want to talk with Matt a bit today about the trip. I want to talk about the deeper significance of it. I want to talk about how things in Europe are going in general, and just kind of compare and contrast what they do over there with what we do over here. So without further ado, I'll shut up and say, Matt, hey, thank you for being here with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve. It's always an honor to be on here, and I always have a good time talking to you.
Well, I do my best. Obviously, there are difficulties, but we try to overcome the difficulties. Last time I had my remember that AFA flag that you gave me out at the Hoff last time? I had it fly back here. It kind of got taken down and rearranged as we were kind of pulling all of this stuff together in the last few minutes. But I fly it regularly. I'm still absolutely supportive of the work of the organization and the things that you're doing. So, Traveler's Tales. Tell us, just give us the kind of the quick outline, the summary of where you've been and what you've done, and we'll ask questions from there.
Sounds good. I was going to say it would be impossible to do it justice sitting here trying to tell you about it. It was absolutely amazing. First and foremost, our hosts were fantastic. Anders Nilsson is our folk builder over there, and in short order, in 2.5 years maybe, he's built one of our most vibrant regions over there. I think our third most vibrant region in the world. It's really fantastic. And he had a group of about 6 guys come over and camp in his yard and just post up to be kind of our entourage for those first few days when we were in the western portion of the country. And they showed us amazing things. Those guys were fantastic. They took such good care of us. Anders and his family put us up, and it was really amazing. You said we went to Norway, and we did. We flew into Oslo. We found really good deals on flights out of Oakland, of all places. Direct flight from Oakland to Oslo for a very, very good price. So anybody hearing this, Norwegian Air out of Oakland, be careful with your luggage. They'll try to gouge you, but the price itself is really nice to get to a number of different destinations in Europe, it sounds like. So we flew in there. We had some AFA members picking us up at the airport, which was awesome, meeting us at the airport, and then driving us over to the event. Mandy and myself went with a member over there named Hans. That was absolutely a delight to get to meet and spend time with. He stopped at points of interest throughout, that little corner of Norway between there and down in western Tanum in western Sweden, where Anders ends up living. So that was fantastic. We got a real treat to see some off the beaten path things in Norway on the way down the first day. Anders and his crew took us to fantastic old circles, stone ships that were just magnificent, and ancient rock carvings. And the ancient rock carvings were fantastic. If you look at any of the pictures, people have gone back in and painted them red so you could see the outlines of what was carved. And it's a little bit odd, but I'm glad they did it. When you look at the carvings that don't have the red on it, you can barely make it out unless you get right in the right light. So it was really amazing to see some of these things, and they're very ancient. Pretty much all of the things we were shown almost exclusively were pre-Viking Age. Our faith and our ancestry, a lot of people get it too caught up with a very short period of 300 years in time, and it spans back to the beginning of our folk. It goes back, thousands of years. So it was really a treat to get to see that stuff. And it was a treat to get to go to their breakfast buffets. I tell you what, the Swedes know how to do breakfast right. West Coast salad, if you haven't had it, look it up. It's like shrimp and mayonnaise and delicious, and you put it on bread or crackers or whatever else. And Mark and myself couldn't get enough. But yeah, we did that for the first few days, and then we headed fairly close by there for our AFA event, Ultima Thule, that Anders and his guys put on and planned. It was at kind of a Viking Age recreation village there with a really nice hall we got to do our gathering in. It was actually a hall that Anders was part of building years ago, so that was kind of special. And It was fantastic. As an international AFA event, we had folks from 6 different countries represented and speaking 5 different languages, and that was really something. The small inconvenience of having a couple of translators translate things was nothing compared to the how good it felt to have that many people speaking European languages in the AFA event. It was really special. Met some great people. We had gentlemen come up from Italy. We had folks from the United Kingdom there. We had a group of Germans coming up from the Art Gemeinschaft group in Germany, and they were amazing. It was great to meet those guys, get to know them, the leader of their organization, and spend some time with them. Fantastic group of folks. It was a really great event. Did that, and then spent the last couple of days, drove over to Uppsala, got to see the sites there, and got to go walk through Stockholm a little bit and see, downtown historic areas of Stockholm. And it was fantastic. They really packed in a lot, and they showed us, it's triple a lifetime. One thing I'll note, you and I were in Denmark a few years ago, and it seems like the stone circles and the stone ships, like the stones were much more massive in Sweden, was kind of a difference. And Sweden seems to be a lot more forested. So it was really interesting to see kind of the difference in the layout of some of those Scandinavian countries over there.
Right. I know that when we were there in 2013 on the little trip that you and I and a few other people took, that we had some pretty profound experiences in some of the locations we went to, and without prying too deeply in anything that might be private, did you experience anything like that? Did you have any of those moments that were just moments of total connection and significance and a feeling that there was more than just the obvious going on?
Absolutely. That was one of the things, and a number of our group noticed that and commented on it when we were places. Once you've seen a stone circle and a stone ship, they're all very, very similar. But what was really interesting was the feeling that we got when we were in these and when we were amongst these massive burial grounds. You really felt the presence of our ancestors. You really felt an ancient presence of our folk there. And it's difficult to put into words in a way that I think is going to translate to the folks listening here. But I don't know if you get that feeling when you go through a graveyard where there's a presence there. But a graveyard in the United States, if you're very lucky, has 200 of people interred there. When you go to some of those grave areas and burial sites and sacred places, they have 4,000 and 5,000 years of people in that hallowed, and the feeling was really special and very hard to describe.
That's interesting. I go through the average graveyard in the United States, and except for the graves of people I'm personally connected with, there's not much to describe. It's just, another grave. And it's ironic that some of these sites that are really much, much, much older, that feeling is there. It's not something that just dissipates with time. It seems to be imprinted on the very rocks, imprinted in the very soil of the place in a way that, 20th century, we've lost a lot of that. We've lost a lot of our connection. So it's ironic and a little strange, but it's really cool too, that we can go to a place like that and it's the old stuff that's been that way for many centuries and even millennia that grabs us and touches us and reaches out for us. So,
well, and it's something as Americans, we don't have that availability or that point of contact with the very remote past.
Mm-hmm.
As white Americans, we don't have that here established. And so it's really something different to go over there where we know for a fact our folk we can speak about what people and what group of people were there in these, thousands of year old grave sites. And it was really quite special.
Yeah, I would think so. So tell me a little bit about the practices that you guys participated in. How do they do bloat, and how, in a way that contrasts with what we do? How are their techniques unique?
Well, the Swedes, and I think maybe more Scandinavians in general, are a lot more reserved. I think emotionally, the bloat that Anders performed was really interesting. It was very powerful, but it was also very quiet and very contemplative. Yeah, there was a lot internally going on. There was, almost a mantra of chanting that we did. That was nice, but it was much more emotionally calm than some of the things that we tend to do. And that was really interesting, and it was very nice. I felt it was a really powerful bloat, and I believe the All Father received it well, and I think we were blessed because of it. Um, One thing that they do, there's a lot of singing involved, which is really nice, and I wish we had, and I wish we did more, and I'd like to see more in the coming years. There was singing. Not a ton, but they had little songs that they sang, and that was nice. Um, yeah, a lot of practice in the old sacred spaces and communing with the spirits of the ancestors. They talked a lot about how they do the outsitting in the circles and the grave mounds and in that kind of areas. They do a lot of that over there, and that was really nice to see. They seem very, very connected with their land and the sacred sites that they have, which was nice, and certainly something very different than how we are able to practice here in the United States.
Right, right. Did you do bloat for them?
Yeah, I did an Odin bloat for them the day after Andrew's Odin bloat, and it was done much differently than they're used to. Um, I've heard good things. I hope they could be just being polite. I don't know. I think it was something certainly that was very different than the way they're used to doing bloat, and I hope it was well received. I promise it was well intended, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Was it typical to the Odin bloats I've seen you do?
yes,
In other words, it was wham bam. I can see how that would really contrast with the contemplative, introspective way. And then I'm not being critical of what they do, but I'm just saying that your approach and my approach as well has always been a little more, Odin, Wotan, Woden, whatever name you want to call him by. Yeah, let's get this going.
Well, that's the
So.
thing. Odin has hundreds of names,
Mhm.
all reflecting a different aspect of his character, and some of that is very quiet and is very contemplative, and some of it is the god of warrior ecstasy. There's a wide range of emotions, and I think that we touched on that in very different ways. So,
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, definitely. What do they do in the way of stumble?
um, so we did a formal 3-round AFA stumble at the event. They typically don't. They do kind of a smaller stumble. I mean, they pass the horn around and say stuff at casual times, and when they do their bloat, so I'm told, often in the after the main portion of the bloat, they'll do a round of saying something over the horn as well, and kind of incorporate a bit of stumble into their bloats. And that
Okay.
sounds like similar to what the Danes did when we talked to them as well.
Yeah. Okay.
People are asking.
Yeah. Sheila tells me that people are asking how they can contact the AFA, if they're interested in doing so. And so, what Sheila has scrawled out for me here to pass on to them is contact your regional folk builder at www.runestone.org with folk builders. Or you can write to Sheila, who seems to spend most of her time these days on the computer. She's sort of the folk builder at large, and that's Sheila at runestone.org. So yeah, we'd be glad to get anybody hooked up with the AFA who's interested in the sort of things we do. And thank you for asking. So just a little intromission there. Do they use mead in their rituals?
They
Or
do.
they use
I don't think it's as commercially available over there for whatever reason. We've been really fortunate here in the United States to have a big mead resurgence as far as craft brewers, and we get some really nice stuff. They had a couple of guys over there that made some home brew that was good, and then some other guys had to mail out. I guess over there you have to go through a government liquor store, and they requested some be imported in from Poland. So
okay. Yeah. All right. Sheila was telling me that she'd seen something online, and I guess the Icelanders seem to use beer generally, which, a little surprising, but I guess it's just going to be done different ways in different countries. So, I'm not trying to be critical there, but, I kind of prefer the mead myself, but, to each their own, I guess. Something we've heard a lot about is the allegations of a Swedish ban on runes, ban on other symbols. Some people say that's fake news. Some people say it's not really fake news, but it's exaggerated or it's specially applied or whatever. What's the scoop from the people on the ground?
Fake news. Not completely. I mean, there's certainly an element that wants to suppress that kind of thing, but the impression I got from the locals was their rules are a lot more loose and a lot more contextual, to where if you are politically correct and acceptable by the establishment, you have a lot more freedom to do things. Yet if you do the exact same things or wear the exact same symbols, and they feel that your opinions or your thoughts are incorrect, then all of a sudden those same things become criminalized.
Okay.
But it became, when that story broke, we were actually over there, and it was really interesting as we're going through, the average tourist and local school children museum. There's, runic pendants and things everywhere. The runes are so deeply ingrained in their culture from a very serious and in a very good way, a spiritual aspect. But even in a materialistic economic aspect, it would seem kind of foolish because it would really hurt a lot of their, tourism industry and museum industry to completely ban the runes.
Right.
So most of our folk over there I talked to didn't really take that news particularly seriously.
Well, that's good news for all of us. I mean, we don't need that kind of thing going on. Undoubtedly, there are people on the left in Sweden, or hell, here for that matter, who would gladly, do something that draconian. But there's still enough common sense left in society to where it's that's less and less likely to be something, a real thing. Yeah. How about the Christians? Do the Christians in Scandinavia do they more or less accept the existence of Asatru, or is it something that they rail against, or somewhere in between? What's the story?
What Christians? As far as I could tell, there seemed to be no Christianity in Scandinavia. There was, old churches that were quite beautiful, but there wasn't, from what I can tell talking to the Swedes over there, Christianity isn't really a thing. There's there's a cultural thing to where people will get married or do something at a church, but as far as regular attendance or particularly sincere belief, that seems to be very foreign. And I asked them kind of how long ago that was, and they said, over 50 years ago. It's been a very long time there. Here in the United States, I'd say that started to die out a lot in the 70s, and it's kind of increased exponentially to this point. Back in Sweden, it sounds like it started much earlier than that. So I don't think there's a lot of Christian opposition, because I didn't get the impression Christianity was very vibrant in Sweden.
Wow. Yeah, that's not something you hear every day. That's interesting indeed. Yeah. How about the attitude of Scandinavians towards, Americans that want to practice Asatru? Does that seem bizarre to them or unusual, or especially a guy named McNallen? I mean, why isn't he out there with the Celts or something, right?
That really didn't come up, and I think we have kind of a selected audience. Most of the people that I interacted with there were already loyal, committed AFA members, and I think that if they had a problem with you or myself, they probably wouldn't have been there. So I don't think it was a fair sampling, but I didn't pick any of that up. And I was told, anecdotally about stories, about questions folks had early on. Why do we need this American group? Like, we're surrounded by these holy places. We're Swedes. Why on earth would we need these Americans to come tell us how to be Asatru? And a very similar thing to what I feel happened in Denmark seemed to happen over there is the locals looked around and said, well, what are the Asatru in our country doing? What are these guys over in America doing? That's why we need them. Is there's something outside that is eager and mentally vibrant on it. It's one of those, you take stuff for granted that's around you a lot, and I think it's referred to as zealotry of the fringe. But the further people are away from their ancestral center, the more desperately they hold on to those traditions, and the more just fervent they are at creating and keeping things alive mentally, because there is that distance. And I think that it shakes up the complacency a little bit, and they seem to understand that and be cool with that. That being said, what he's got going over there, what Anders has built in Sweden, and what those guys are doing is extremely vibrant, and I was really glad to see it.
Nice. Yeah. I agree with you about the zealotry of the fringe phenomenon. I think that probably is a big part of what we go through over here. We pine for those things that we're not surrounded by. We far from taking it for granted. It's a rarity to us, and so we try to do the best we can with what we have. And in a way, that's good. We're not surrounded by the material presence in terms of, rune stones on every corner or anything. So in a way, I think that drives our seeking maybe to a different level. We have to try harder in order to make that kind of a connection, perhaps. Just, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree fully. They've got sacred places all around them, and we have sacred places internally. And that's a different, I think it's a more difficult struggle. It's one of those things.
Right. We have to begin creating sacred spaces over here. The Hof at Brownsville, is something that is accumulating power, and that will continue. And a generation from now, I think that it will be deeper and more profound. In a century from now, even more so. I mean, in a way, we are just kind of getting the ball rolling over here, but we are influencing these places that we do ritual. That atmosphere, that sacred presence hangs on a bit, and it's just a very long procedure for us because we've got so far to go, I think. So are Scandinavians allowed to use the archaeological sites or the sacred sites over there for their ritual work? I mean, can they do bloat on the mounds at Uppsala or anything like that?
I think that a place like Uppsala, you'd probably have to get some kind of permission from someone. But in general, I guess one of the upsides in the Swedish government not really caring is they don't take care of a lot of these places. And I'm sure there's very notable ones that you couldn't, but the ones we went to, you absolutely could hold ritual at. And they do very regularly. Very often these stone circles, which are all over the place, they're, on someone's farm or in the middle of the woods or off in the middle of nowhere. It's not sterilized like you see in America, where everything is roped off and under 3 layers of plexiglass and removed from the people and removed kind of from the real world.
Right. And certainly we visited lots of places in Denmark back in 2013 that would meet that description. You know, that one place out in the middle of the field, you know, with that little hillock with the tiny little entrance, and crawling inside that, and the death moths or whatever they were that flew out, you know, that Sheila disturbed, and it was like something out of a freaking horror movie or something, you know. Excuse me. Obviously, I've got a little bit of lung problems today as well, but I was just looking over at her and laughing because that was kind of remarkable. I just, yeah, that's awesome. In terms of the Asatru practice over there, is there a bias like we have, I think, generally in favor of the Aesir? You know, Odin and Thor get an awful lot of our attention, and you know, the others, you know, come in often on a kind of a seasonal basis. Are they more Vanir oriented? Are they more open to the Vanir? I could certainly understand that in Sweden, given Ingvi Frey and all that kind of stuff. So what's the balance in terms of their attention they pay to different deities?
Well, I think whoever's leading things tends to set a tone. And while certainly they, you know, are very reverent towards the Vanir, I think the Odin prevalence in things may have a lot to do with Anders' personal relationship to the Allfather, or personal devotion to the Allfather. And I think that comes through because he's setting the tone for a lot of things. So certainly what we saw, there was a lot of Odin representation. But I have every reason to believe, and you know, there was many gods hailed and goddesses hailed, and again, I didn't get the idea that there was any particular Vanir preference, and I thought that there might be, but I didn't get that impression there.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think Sheila's jotting down another question over there.
Mind.
Oh, okay. It's nothing for her, I guess. Okay, disregard that. What do they have in the way of their plans for the future, or their you know, their hopes for the future? You know, how do they see the thing developing over the next, say, few decades?
They're extremely energized. Certainly our guys over there are very energized. They've seen what they've been able to build since they've been involved with the AFA for the last few years, since they've gotten together and been involved with each other. And they're really excited about the future. It seems like they've got kind of a spot now to where they know they're going to meet and get together. They've been building lots of connections with their countrymen who are also interested in Asatru and who are involved. Anders being in charge of our folk building effort in Europe has really helped make connections with groups outside of Sweden. You know, we've already got 3 Swedish kindreds. We've got a Norwegian kindred on the way. They're really building over there at a good pace, and they see that and are very energized by it. One of the things they're talking about very heavily is they want an AFA Hof there. They want an AFA Hof there. They want to make that happen. That's probably not in the running for Hof 2. We've got some other irons in the fire on that, but that may very well be an option for Hof 3.
No, sweet.
But that's certainly in the running. And they're very eager to make that happen and put in the groundwork. You know, before we left there, we had serious discussion as far as legalities and costs and numbers and figures and trying to make it happen. And one of our members over there is in real estate, and he's already scouting out locations. So they're all in, and they're building very heavily. And I think they're extremely optimistic about the future when it comes to Asatru in their country.
Awesome. You know, I think probably most of our listeners are aware, you know, that we've got, the AFA's got, you know, Hof number 1 out there in Brownsville, you know, several thousand square feet in area. Some leftists referred to it as a barn online, but of course it's a Grange hall. It's been used for as a community hall basically for literally generations, and it's been a very good place for us, I think, in many ways.
Did that lefty
And,
happen to show you a picture of his Hoff?
you know, darn,
Yeah,
I forgot. Yeah,
maybe next time.
yeah. Well, yeah, it looked a little bit like his mom's basement. What can I say? Yeah, and so we're looking at a second one over in the other part of the country. I don't know how much you want to give away about any of that, but why are we looking for a second AFA Hoff in the U.S. here?
In general, why we're looking to make more Hoffs is our faith is real, it is vibrant, our gods are with us, and we need to erect temples to honor them. Wherever our folk are present, wherever we gather, wherever we raise our voices in praise to our gods, we need to raise buildings and things to honor them and to gather in. And we're very committed to doing that. We're going to do them one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. We're going to build success upon success. We're still within the first year of paying off that first Odenshoff, and we're talking to realtors and very much in the process of that second one. And as soon as that one's paid off, we'll be in the process of that third one. As far as why here in the U.S. and why in the northern central part of the country, that's an easy question. I want people who are listening out there who are curious and AFA members that are curious. In order for us to decide on the spot where it needs to be, I mean, certainly we need to find a place where the economics are right and it's something we can afford to do. But most importantly, we need a vibrant AFA community in the area. We need something that has some longevity, some proven success under their belt, that they're going to stick it out for the long haul. We need an area with volunteers that reliably step up to help out, and ideally multiple volunteers to where there's redundancy. Building a temple to our gods someplace is something we take extremely seriously, and we wouldn't want to put that much blood, sweat, tears, and devotion into something and then find out we couldn't use it. So we need a solid community that has stick-to-itiveness and dedication to make it happen. Fortunately, it's a good problem to have. We have multiple places to choose from, and we get to choose the best of great options, which is really a blessing in the AFA. So right now, there's not a shortage of those areas. But if you want an AFA Hoff in your area, get your AFA community functioning, throw yourself into volunteering to help make it happen, build that community, make it steady, and we'll get to you.
Yeah, there you go. And I can certainly testify, it makes a huge difference having a place like that. It's not that people haven't done things in other circumstances. People have had their sacred circles on their own land or whatever for years and years. They kind of come and go as people drop in or drop out. There have been houses that were used wholly or partly for Asatru services, and I get that. But what the AFA did was a whole different order of magnitude. And I'm not being critical of the people who came before, because everything starts off small. I mean, gosh, some of us remember the very early days of Asatru in this country. The difference between then and now is just immense. This is a whole different ball game. This is not the Asatru of 10 years ago or 15 years ago or even 20 years ago. It's a whole new and very exciting situation. It has immense promise, and we're moving on that, I think, with all deliberate speed, as they say.
Well, I think
got another question
subject that I'd like to say about it. You mentioned earlier that we talked about the sacred places over in Europe that I was able to go visit, and you said Odenshoff is our first step at building that here. And that's an important point you made. You talked about some of the transient areas, like somebody's backyard, and then they sell it. And I'm not faulting on people selling their property. I mean, up in Alaska, at the house I had up there, we had a place that we did ritual. And unfortunately, that had to get sold when we sold our house. The idea with building AFA Hoffs, those are meant to be there forever. Those are meant to be sacred places that build that might over years, over decades, and over centuries. The tangibility of that is crucial. And while we've done an amazing job here building the intangible, building the spiritual, building the community, and building concepts here in the United States. It's a really special time that we get to be in, where we're now building the tangible and very real, reach out and touch them monuments to the divine, and places for our people to benefit from the spiritual might that we're putting in those places. Our children, our children's children will get to feel that power. And that's a special thing.
Yes, absolutely. Very special. Got some more questions coming in from chat. In regards to dress for bloat, the question, as at least as Sheila transcribed it, did you dress formally for bloat like you do here? How did they dress for bloat? And was there any traditional ritual garb that they used?
So yeah, I absolutely dressed formally like I do here, as did quite a few of our members. I think that some of them do that out of practice. I think some of them probably did it out of respect, knowing that's something that I think's an important thing to do. We had some other folks dressed a little bit more casually. We had two gentlemen that were dressed, I guess, a little bit more in what you call traditional garb, but not in a silly way. It didn't look reenactory. It was more a custom made tunic for that purpose, and not Renaissance fair clothes. But yeah, that was what I observed. Not sure what they do in different circumstances. I think that you dress for the occasion, but for what we were there as part of, and anybody who'd like can go on and check our pictures. I encourage you, because it was a lot of fun, and I want you guys to share them. But take a look at the pictures. Anything where we're in that Viking-looking hall is during our ritual time, and that you'll get an idea of what folks were wearing.
Excellent. I haven't seen all of those, but I'm looking forward to getting a little more time to go over some of them. I think that's an important thing to discuss, and I'm glad to see that's taken place. In terms of, say, their opinions of our practices, do they have any preconceptions about what we do or what we don't do? Are the things that we do that mystify them or puzzle them, or in worst case scenario offend them? What do they think about those crazy Americans and the way they do things?
This is less exciting, but I think is a really special thing. I didn't get any of that. There wasn't culture clash. We had AFA members who are AFA family in Sweden. And one of the good things, it's very easy to black pill about social media, but the AFA has tried really hard to use it right. And so we've built relationships with these people over the course of years. And we felt immediately at home with them. And, within 4 days, we felt like family. There wasn't a lot of, oh, you crazy Americans, what are you guys doing? This is odd. We knew these people. These were our brothers and sisters. And there was none of that culture clash awkwardness. We didn't pick up on any of that. The AFA we have here in the United States are always really emotional, and we feel amazing with the people that we meet. This is the first AFA event that when we were leaving and we had to break up the event and everybody go their separate ways, I can think of 7 people off the top of my head that were weeping about it, because we felt so close to each other in such a short amount of time. So that was really a special thing. From the second we got off the airplane, we felt like we were family and had known these people forever. And I hope they felt the same way about us.
I'm sure they did. And, I think that's something that is very special indeed. Our deeper culture just totally supersedes, the little national differences between, Sweden and the United States. We are bound by deep culture. We're bound by blood. We're bound by practices in various interpretations that go back for millennia. So, I think that's what you're telling me is proof of that. And it's a wonderful thing. Sheila, you have something else for me? Sheila's over there doing all the work. I'm just hanging out here chatting. when we were in Denmark in 2013, we saw a lot of use of the ancient sun wheel. Uh, you know, the one fellow that came out to meet us and do ritual with us, had his staff with the sun wheel on top, and and he used that ritually for blessing things and pouring things through it and so forth. And it was obviously a big deal with the Danes. Is that particular variation of the sun wheel something that gets? I mean, obviously it was there and known, but does it get that kind of recognition ritually or in any other way in Sweden?
Ritually, I'm not sure. It was certainly there, and you certainly saw it on a lot of the rock carvings because it's a very ancient symbol. You saw a lot of what looked to be solar symbols on the ancient rock carvings, I believe bronze rock carvings. Tons of solar symbols everywhere, and you saw that particular version of the sun wheel very often. And I can't think of like a real specific use of it that I saw done ritually there. Certainly not like the gentleman with the end of his staff pouring the mead through it. But I think they all have a little bit different way of doing things. Anders' Odin ritual was really nice because he created a really, really beautiful bowl to pour offerings into, and then he has a statue of Odin he puts in the middle of it and pours spoonfuls of meat on top of it. So I think that the way they pour and distribute the libation, I think, is very important over there. Certainly, it was in Anders' ritual, as well as it seemed to be with the Danes when we were there.
Okay, all right. And this is a good one. Are they creating modern rune stones?
I have no reason to believe that they are. I didn't see a ton of rune stones when I was there. Certainly not like we did in Denmark. There was a lot of rune stones, I guess, in Sweden that were torn down and incorporated into buildings. We were at a random street corner in downtown Stockholm, and there was a rune stone fragment in some of the rock walls constructing it, which I guess somebody had gone in and repainted the red over it so you could see like the runes in it. But that was really interesting. A lot of the rune stones we found were from the Christian period. Certainly the ones they have on display in downtown Uppsala were just right after the conversion. So you saw a lot of crucifixes and things, but you still had a dragon motif around it with the runes in it.
Right. And of course, you had some of the very earliest runic revival in Sweden, as I recall. A lot of the scholarship was lacking, but there was still a real connection. And, back in the 1600s, that a lot of the things that had been suppressed were being reinvestigated and opened up and worked with. So, they've obviously got.
Runes, when we were in Denmark, they didn't really incorporate the runes ritually. Certainly, and I say this, we met a handful of Danes and I met a handful of Swedes. This may not speak for the entire country, but the Danes that we met used the runes for writing and certainly understood the younger Futhark as far as writing, but they didn't really incorporate them into esoteric practice. The Swedes certainly did. Our Swedish members over there were very much used the elder Futhark in spiritual practice, and it wasn't really something they were using a lot for writing. I'm sure they understand old Viking writing with runes, but they used it much more esoterically.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, actually. Yeah. So they used mostly younger Futhark rather than elder?
Did I get that wrong? As far as I saw, they seem to use elder Futhark.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. All right. I think Sheila's got to take another question over there. Pretty much run through my list. Maybe here we go. Have they considered Asatru burial locations like the Danes and like us?
Considered, yes. Accomplished, not that I'm aware of. We did talk about that a little bit. I spent a lot of time in and around burial, like mass grave, multiple burial mound areas, and we spent a lot of time just in modern graveyards over there. As we saw, that Scandinavians really make a nice cemetery. Um, but no, and they mentioned the area that the Danes have that we got to go see. They mentioned that as a thing or something to consider or to talk about. But as far as I know, they haven't figured out any of that for themselves yet. We did discuss it at length.
Yeah. I think certainly that's something that we've all considered to one extent or another. And, the question of how to do that in a modern setting, with laws, restrictions, whatever. Some ways it sounds rather like it's a considerable obstacle. And then, other things that I've run across indicate, well, no, it's not that big an obstacle and it could be overcome. So I think all that's going to happen eventually. It's just a matter of time. If they can do it over there, we can certainly do it here.
It will absolutely happen. We'll make it happen, and we'll make sure it does. It's difficult on what state. In the communist area of California, it's very difficult. In other states, it seems to be very easy. We just don't happen to have the land there. So it's something that we will absolutely make happen at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Super. And okay. Thanks, Dave. Got a little bit more here. Thanks for the update. Any news you want to share about the AFA? Duh. And also South Africa.
Folk builder, the new folk builder.
Oh, okay. South Africa. We got a new folk builder, I guess, for there. Kindreds. Tell us about the kindreds, Sheila.
Lots of them.
Lots of them. Okay, so lots of kindreds. South Africa folk builder. Generic news. I think that what this is giving you an opportunity to tell people, aside from this trip, as incredible as that was, what are some real quick talking points about things that it's happening here for us, like Midsummer, for example?
Well, all right, we'll keep it international, and then we'll zero it back into here in the States. South Africa is doing fantastic. Our membership there is growing. It's just started this year, and it's already fantastic. We have an AFA Kindred there that's doing great work. And we have our newest folk builder in South Africa, a guy named Christo Leroux. Christo is a member of leadership in Volkswagen Kindred there, and he's a fantastic guy. I've gotten to talk to him quite a bit this year, and he's got his head on straight. He's really solid. His kindred are great folks. They're actually, in the past, when we've collected monies as the AFA to help out folks in South Africa, we've relied on third parties to distribute the relief. Now, with us having membership in both Johannesburg and Cape Town, we're able to have AFA members go in to the camps as AFA members and personally distribute AFA members' contributions towards the relief effort. And that's really nice to see. It's special to be able to. And this way, specific people get to know that the AFA cares about them. And it's a really nice thing, and we can know exactly where our donations are going and how they're being distributed. But yeah, Christo's our new folk builder there. Since announcing him on the page, it's blowing up with interest of people that want to contact him and get involved. So that's a beautiful thing. Kindred's doing amazing. AFA Kindred program is less than 3 years old. We've got 25 active Kindreds. I talked to Jason Gallagher, our Kindred coordinator, earlier today. He told me of 4 more Kindreds that are in the works to become AFA Kindreds. And that being said, we don't accept all Kindreds. You can have plenty of Kindreds that involve AFA members that don't want to take that next step of loyalty to be an official AFA Kindred. So these aren't just all the Kindreds involved in the AFA. These are the elite Kindreds that define themselves by AFA loyalty. And we got 25 of those right now. Other cool things going on. We got Midsummer coming up on the 21st through the 23rd at Odenshof. That's kind of our premier event. It's usually the biggest one of the year. It's going to be spectacular this year. And if you're an AFA member, we would love to see you out there. If you're not an AFA member and you want to come, please do contact one of the folk builders at www.runestone.org, and we can see about getting you vouched for and getting you at the event. After that, our next thing we've got going on is Fall Fest number 4 in Minnesota. Fall Fest has very fast become an amazing phenomenon with some of the best members you will ever find. It is a fantastic event. This is going to be the 4th one. It has grown and become better every year. This will be no exception. We'd love to see you guys there. Again, if you're a member, cool, come on out. If you're not, you should become a member. And barring that, you should contact the folk builders in that region and see about getting vouched for and get you to come. If you come, probably going to become a member afterwards, because it's an amazing event and we really do show our best there.
Right. Always good to meet new people. So I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of new AFA members in the coming weeks and months. I think we're running on down the pike here a little bit. Big Dave, I know you're dying to ask a question or two. You back there, buddy? Hello.
What's going on?
Yeah. Hey, there's my producer.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I just wanted to give you a shout out and thanks for your helping to square everything away and pulling all this together for us. As always, you're doing a great job. Do you have anything you wanted to ask Matt before we sign off?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Mr. McNallen. It's my pleasure to produce this for you guys and get the word out to all of our new incoming folk, because the great folk awakening is happening as we speak. We are reaching, the golden age here of heathenism. So I can't wait for the coming years and stuff like that. And I have one quick question for Mr. Matt. I know you guys are working on Hoff number 2. And we all know Hoff number 3 is going to be coming after that, and very soon it's going to be Hoffs everywhere. Like, for like a realistic projection, how long until like we can establish like galactic pagan supremacy? Like, we're talking spaceships, Hyperborean megaships, and Hoffs in space.
4 years.
4 years, okay.
You think it'll take that long? Seriously? Actually, since we sort of lapsed into relative cash here, I want to correct a statement that I made last time we were on. I stated that, let me find my notes. I stated that the first human object went into space in 1944. And that's actually not true. And I've got the wrong piece of paper. Stand by. Stand by for shuffles. Actually, it was 1942, not 1944. There's 2 different ways of measuring objects in space. NASA has always said it's 50 miles. Internationally, it's the von Karman line, which is like, 100 kilometers or something like that. And so those two records were attained. The first one in 1942 and the second one in 1944, both with V2 rockets. And so that is when the spaceship was born.
Incredible.
There it is. It's astounding. And in 1942, they had airplanes, and that's about it. Props, jets, barely kind of. This just shows, got to think big. It's that destiny thing again. I've talked about destiny a lot on the last episode and somewhat on this one. Got to think big. We got to work in the space and time we are right now to do things that are real and that will build and build and build in a very incremental way. It's like microorganisms building a reef almost, and it's not fast and it's not dramatic. But if we do that well, if we excel at that, then the results will be massive. Our great grandchildren. Hey, it's awesome. We're all looking good. Well, again, thanks, Dave, for producing. Appreciate it very much. You pulled this together. Matt, thank you so much for being here with us. A very inspiring trip, and it makes me want to go travel. So to all of my people out there who are tuning in on this, thank you for being here with us. Your questions are always welcome, and your involvement is always welcome. And give us a like, and don't forget my book. Give your signature. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll sign this off for now. See you next week.